Have you ever looked at two companies and just wondered, why does one absolutely crush it while the other one just struggles to survive? It's one of the biggest puzzles in business. And the answer? Well, it all comes down to a powerful idea called competitive advantage. Okay, let's just dive right into a real-world example to see what I mean. Take a look at these two companies over the same stretch of time. You've got the pharma company Schering-Plough, which generated over $10 billion in pure economic profit. That's after every single cost is accounted for. And then you have U.S. Steel, which in that same period lost $500 million. I mean, same economy, same years, but just wildly different outcomes. The big question is, why? Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Well, duh, it's obvious. Pharmaceuticals is just a better business to be in than steel. And, there's definitely some truth to that. But it is not the whole story, not even close. And yeah, the data absolutely backs this up. The pharma industry as a whole was a much, much more profitable playground than steel was. So for sure, the industry you're in sets the stage. It matters. But think about it. If that was the only thing that mattered, then every single pharma company would be a huge success and every steel company would be a failure. And we know for a fact that's just not true. And here's the real kicker. This is where it gets super interesting. Research shows that a massive 30 to 45% of the difference in how profitable companies are comes from how they perform against each other inside the same industry. That's often a bigger deal than which industry they were in the first place. Which, of course, brings us right to that billion-dollar question that every CEO, every strategist, every investor wants to answer. If it's not just about being in the right place at the right time, what really separates the winners from everyone else? The answer is a concept called competitive advantage. And honestly, the best way to think about it is as a value wedge. It's all about your company's ability to create a bigger gap between what customers are willing to pay for your stuff and what it costs you to make it, a bigger gap than any of your rivals can create. So the top edge of this wedge is what we call your customer's willingness to pay. And this isn't just the price on the tag. No. It's the absolute maximum amount a customer would fork over before they walk away. Think about that amazing cup of coffee you love. The price is $5, but on a really rough Monday morning, you might be willing to pay up to $7 for it. That $7, that's your willingness to pay. Then, the bottom edge of the wedge is basically your costs, everything it takes to get your product made and out the door. So, the name of the game is simple. Create the biggest possible wedge between what people will pay and what it costs you to deliver. Now, this whole wedge thing can feel a little abstract. I get it. So let's make it super concrete with a fascinating story about industrial cranes. Yeah, cranes. Trust me, this makes the whole idea click into place. Okay, so there was this company called Harnisch-Feger, and they built this incredible, revolutionary crane. Customers valued it at $7.5 million. But it only cost Harnisch-Feger $2.5 million to build. I mean, that is a huge $5 million value wedge. They should have been rolling in money. But they weren't. Their profits were razor thin. So, what went wrong? The problem had a name. And that name was Crenco. A competitor came along and started making the exact same crane at the exact same cost. All of a sudden, Harnisch-Feger wasn't the only game in town anymore. And this brings us to a super important term, added value. The best way to think about it is to ask this question. If your company just vanished tomorrow, what unique value would the world actually lose? What do you provide that no one else possibly can? And here is the punchline to the whole story. The second Crenco showed up with an identical product, Harnisch-Feger's added value dropped to zero. Poof, done. Because if they disappeared, customers could just go buy the same thing from Crenco. No big deal. And when your added value is zero, guess what your ability to make a profit is? Zero. The two competitors just end up in a price war, bidding each other down until all that profit just vanishes. So, that story proves something absolutely critical. To be profitable, you have to create real, unique, added value. You have to actively find ways to widen that wedge. And it turns out there are basically two fundamental ways you can go about doing that. All right, path number one is the differentiation strategy. This is where you focus on making your product so much better, so unique, that customers are willing to pay a premium for it. And, this is key, that premium is way more than what it cost you to make those improvements. A classic example is Toyota, known for its incredible quality. Then there's path number 2, the low-cost strategy. Here, your whole focus is on being ruthlessly efficient, slashing your costs so you can offer a better price than anyone else. Think Hyundai. And we see these strategies playing out with some of the biggest companies in the world. Accenture differentiates on its deep expertise and its powerful brand. Southwest Airlines is the absolute king of low cost, built on extreme efficiency. And then you get a company like Cirque du Soleil, which did something amazing. It kind of did both. It cut out the really high-cost stuff from traditional circuses, like animals, and added high-value theatrical elements that people would pay a ton for. Genius. So how do you actually find these opportunities in your own business? Well, strategists use a pretty cool 4-step process. First, you map out everything your company does. That's your value chain. Then you go through each of those activities and analyze the costs. Step 3, you figure out how much each activity contributes to what your customers are willing to pay. And finally, with all that info, you can make a clear choice about which path you're going to take to widen that wedge. But here is maybe the most important takeaway of this entire discussion. Real, sustainable, competitive advantage isn't about doing just one thing really well. It's not about one killer feature or one brilliant marketing campaign. As the source material puts it beautifully, competitive advantage comes from the full range of a firm's activities, acting in harmony. It's about building an entire system, a whole network of choices that all fit together and reinforce each other, making it incredibly difficult for a competitor to just copy what you're doing. A great way to picture this is to think of the business world as a rugged landscape with lots of different peaks of profitability. Merrill Lynch and Edward Jones are both super successful in finance, right? But they've chosen to climb completely different peaks. Merrill Lynch is in big cities, targeting corporations with national ads. Edward Jones is in the suburbs, targeting individual investors by literally going door to door. Every single choice they make is different, but for each of them, all those choices create a consistent, reinforcing system. And so that really leaves us with the final question to ask yourself. Is your business building a coherent, integrated system on top of a high, profitable peak? Or is it stuck somewhere down in a valley in between, trying to be a little bit of everything to everyone? And as a result, not adding any real, unique value at all?